My name is Marigold. I'm 29 years old. 3 days ago, my sister replaced my wedding vows with a letter she wrote, and I didn't know until I opened it at the altar. The first line read, I, Evelyn, confess to my husband that I am not the person you think I am. That was not my handwriting. That was not my name. My name is Marigold. 150 people stared at me, waiting for me to speak. Then my photographer grabbed my arm. He pulled me aside and said, I recorded her switching the envelopes. Check my camera. But look at who was standing behind her. Before I tell you everything, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely care about this story. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know who's here. Now let me take you back 4 years, to the day my grandmother Ruthie died and my own family turned against me. There's a house on Maple Ridge Road in Cooperton, Georgia. 2 stories, blue roof, wraparound porch, a rose garden out front that's been blooming since 1978. My grandmother Ruthie planted the first bushes the year she moved in. She was 31 then, younger than I am now. Every summer of my childhood, that house was my whole world. I'd sit on the porch and shell pecans into a tin bowl while she told me stories about growing up in South Georgia. She taught me how to make her pecan pie from memory. She taught me how to prune roses without gloves because she said, you need to feel where the dead wood starts. My sister Diane never came. Too boring, too quiet, her words. When Grandma Ruthie was diagnosed with lung cancer, I was 21. I moved in and became her full-time caregiver. I drove her to chemo 90 minutes each way. I slept in the chair beside her hospital bed more nights than I can count. I cooked, I cleaned, I managed her medications. 4 years I did this. My parents visited maybe 5 times total. Diane came twice. Both times she measured the rooms with a tape measure. I thought she was planning bathroom renovations. She wasn't. She was pricing the square footage. Grandma Ruthie died on a Tuesday morning in October. I was holding her hand. 3 days later, her attorney read the will. Her savings split evenly among the family. Her furniture in old Buick divided as we saw fit. The house on Maple Ridge Road left solely to me. The silence in that room is something I will never forget. My mother Sharon stood up first. She lived there rent-free for 4 years and now she gets the house. My father Gerald said nothing. He walked out and stood in the parking lot with his hands in his pockets. Diane laughed. Not a real laugh. The kind that scrapes the back of your throat. Congratulations, she said. You won. That was the last time we were all in the same room without someone raising their voice. Within a week, I was removed from the family group chat with no announcement. The thread was just gone. My mother worked the phones like a campaign manager, calling every aunt, uncle, and cousin on both sides. The message was always the same. Marigold manipulated Mama Ruthie. Marigold isolated her. Marigold made sure nobody else was in the room when the will was signed. None of it was true. The only person who called me back was Aunt Beverly Thurston, my mother's younger sister. She was blunt. Honey, your mama is telling everyone you stole the house. I thought you should know. The proof came a month later at my cousin's wedding. I was placed at a back table near the kitchen, alone. During cocktail hour, I heard Diane's voice carry across the patio. She was talking to a group of cousins. She's the one I told you about. They all looked at me. Then they looked away. I drove home in the dark, pulled into the driveway on Maple Ridge, sat in a car and stared at Grandma Ruthie's rose garden through the windshield. The bushes were overgrown. I had been neglecting them since the funeral. Then Aunt Bev called again. Your mother hasn't made a mortgage payment in 3 months on her own house. That's what this is really about. Diane started calling at night, always from her cell, never blocked, so her name would flash across my dark bedroom ceiling. The calls began businesslike. She quoted the house at $285,000. Split 3 ways, that was $95,000 each. Think about what you could do with $95,000, Marigold. I said no. The calls got uglier. She mentioned contesting the will. She said, I will make your life miserable. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Then my father sent an email. 3 sentences. Your grandmother would be ashamed of what you're doing to this family. Sell the house. End this. That one hurt worse than anything Diane ever said. Marcus was at my kitchen table when Diane called at midnight. He heard everything on speaker. When I hung up, I was shaking. He didn't say a word. He just pulled me into his chest and held on. I tried compromises. A long email proposing that the house stay in my name, but remain open to the whole family. Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, summer weekends, anytime, no questions asked. My mother replied in one line. We don't want to visit your house. We want what's fair. I drove an hour and 15 minutes to meet Diane at a diner halfway to Atlanta. She was already seated and she didn't order food. List the house, split it 3 ways, that's the only conversation I'm having with you. I set $30 on the table and left without another word. Marcus proposed on a Saturday evening in the rose garden. He'd been helping me restore it, pruning, mulching, replanting the bushes that had died. He pulled a ring from his jacket pocket like it was the most natural thing in the world. No grand speech, just, Marigold, will you marry me? I said yes, with mud on my hands and tears on my face. We set the date for 8 months out. Coaperton Community Church. Reception in the fellowship hall next door. $8,000 budget, tight but doable. When I told my parents, they responded with warmth. And that should have been my first warning. My mother called within an hour, voice soft and tender. Let us help. Diane and I can handle the decorations and day of coordination. It'll save you a fortune. I wanted to believe they were coming around. I wanted my mother at my wedding, so I said yes with conditions. I would write my own vows, choose my own dress, pick the photographer. Diane accepted the role of maid of honor. She'd hold my vow envelope during the ceremony and hand it to me at the altar. At the time, I thought Diane was finally trying to be a good sister. I was wrong. Marcus chose our photographer, his college friend Nolan Briggs. Detail-obsessed, meticulous, the kind of man who filmed everything, even when no one asked him to. What I didn't know yet was that on the night before my wedding, while everyone else was eating and laughing at the rehearsal dinner, Nolan's camera was still running, and it had caught everything. At the rehearsal dinner, Diane collected the vow envelopes, Marcus's and mine. She held them up playfully. I'll keep these safe in the bridal suite. Don't worry about a thing. She tucked them into her bag with a wink. What she didn't know was that Nolan had left his camera recording on a shelf in the bridal suite hallway while he tested the sanctuary lighting. A small, quiet decision that would change everything. Timestamp 8:47 p.m. Diane walked into frame, went straight to the dressing table, opened the decorative box, and removed my cream-colored envelope. She replaced it with a white one, and standing directly behind her, holding that white envelope out with both hands, was my mother, Sharon. She passed it to Diane the way you'd hand off a grocery list. Casual. Rehearsed. The whole thing took less than 90 seconds. Neither of them looked around. Neither of them hesitated. They had done exactly what they came to do. The next morning I woke up at 6, went outside in my robe, and watered Grandma Ruthie's roses one last time as Marigold. In the bridal suite, Diane zipped my dress, straightened the hem, and stepped back. You look beautiful, Mari. For one unguarded second she looked like my sister again. The girl who used to braid my hair before school. Today is going to be unforgettable, she said. I promise you that. The vow envelope was on the dressing table. I picked it up. It felt different in my hands, heavier, stiffer. I told myself maybe she had transferred it to a nicer envelope. I set it down without opening it. I wanted to feel every word fresh at the altar. That decision is the one I replay most. 150 people filled the pews at 2 that afternoon. Marcus stood at the altar in a navy suit, eyes already red before I even reached him. Nolan was positioned at the left corner, camera up, recording everything. My mother sat in the front row, clutching a handkerchief. Diane stood at the maid of honor position, bouquet in hand, smiling. Marcus read his vows slowly and clearly, and every word was real. I was crying before he finished. Pastor Davis turned to me. Marigold, your turn. I opened the envelope. The paper was wrong. It registered in my fingers before my eyes caught up. Smooth, bright white, machine-cut edges. Nothing like the cream stationery I had written on. I unfolded it. I, Evelyn, confess to my husband that I am not the person you think I am. My vision tunneled. Words swam in and out of focus. Manipulated her in her final years. Debts. I've never told you about. Our marriage is built on lies. 3 seconds. That's how long I stood there reading. 3 seconds that stretched into something endless. This was not my handwriting. This was typed. This was not my name. I looked up. 150 faces stared back at me. Marcus had taken half a step forward, brow creased. Marigold, are you okay? I looked at Diane standing 4 feet to my left, her face perfectly still. Not shocked. Not confused. Still. I looked at my mother in the front row, handkerchief frozen against her cheek, eyes locked on mine. The church was so quiet I could hear the ceiling fan turning. I understood then not all the details. Those would come later, but the shape of it. The why. The who. 4 years of pressure and phone calls and isolation, all funneling into this moment, this altar, this audience. They wanted me to crumble in front of everyone who had spent 4 years being told I was the selfish one. They were counting on my silence. They always had been. I folded the paper. My hands were shaking, but I folded it in half, then in half again, and I held it at my side. I took one breath, then another. I stepped closer to the microphone. It seems my written vows had been misplaced. I paused and let the words settle. So I'm going to speak from my heart instead. A ripple of whispers moved through the pews. I didn't look at Diane. I didn't look at my mother. I looked at Marcus. And I spoke. I said what I could remember. Not word for word. Not the careful sentences I had spent weeks polishing, but the truth underneath them. I talked about Grandma Ruthie's rose garden, about what it means to show up for someone every single day, not just on the easy days. About Marcus kneeling in the dirt beside me, replanting a dead rose bush, not because he had to, but because it mattered to me. I don't need a piece of paper to tell you who I am, I said. You already know. Marcus squeezed my hand so hard my knuckles pressed together. Pastor Davis smiled. He pronounced us husband and wife. Marcus kissed me and 150 people applauded and the organ played and we walked back down the aisle together. I kept the folded letter and slipped it into the hidden pocket sewn into the lining of my dress. I was going to need it later. Now here's my question for you. If you were standing at that altar holding a fake letter your own sister wrote to humiliate you, what would you have done? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if you're watching this at 2 in the morning and you can't sleep, I see you. I was you. Alright, let's get back to the reception, because that's where everything changed.